Hi, it's Brendan Perry from Dead Can Dance, and you're listening to Olli Sachse.
And saw that everything was vain. How great and wise was Solomon. The world, however, didn't wait.
Hallo Freunde, hier ist mal wieder eine richtig tolle Legende bei Ollis Musikraritäten hier, nämlich Brendan Perry from Dead Can Dance. Ein Solokünstler natürlich, aber auch mit Dead Can Dance weltbekannt und das schon seit über 40 Jahren. Also wirklich der Wahnsinn schlechthin. Hello Brandon.
Hello.
Brandon, you're in Greece now?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Why that?
I love Greece. It's
Yeah.
always kind of been a second home for me. On tours, holidays, and I decided I would like to spend my remaining days here, basically. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people, beautiful culture, and also I kind of want to try something new in life. I spent the last 10 years in France. Prior to that, I was in Ireland for 27 years, New Zealand, Australia, UK. So it's a new chapter in my life.
Okay, then we start at the beginning. You were born in London, then went to Australia and came back to London in the early 80s and then founded Dead Can Dance, let's say 1981. Is that right?
No.
Good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. No, I was born and raised in London, in the East End. And my family emigrated to New Zealand in 73. Yeah. And I lived in New Zealand for about 5 years during my teens. And I got into music when I was 17 there. When punk had just kind of started, I was in one of the first punk bands in New Zealand called the Scavengers. And then went to Australia and then formed Dead Can Dance in Australia.
But then you moved to London again because in Australia you couldn't get any record deal.
Well, it was such a small scene for alternative music in Australia. The population isn't that big, and also the sort of like main music other than pop was really kind of hard rock, FM hard rock. Like AC/DC, Cold Chisel, Rose Tattoo, these kind of bands, and so invariably you'd be playing to the same people, the same audience continually, and the touring circuit was very small. And in order to do that, you had to cover huge distances. I mean, up to Brisbane, it's like going from it'd be like going from Istanbul to London just to play a show in the same country. It's just really impractical. And because of the size of the audience there, there was no possible way that that audience could support you financially and allow you to be independent and pursue an artistic creative career without relying on the state, for subsidies. Um, yeah. So the decision was made to go to Europe, where there was a huge market of young people that were like-minded and into the same kind of music that we were.
But I don't know if you remember that I was a huge fan of the Depeche Mode magazine New Life from Switzerland, and I guess there was a 3 or 4 pages article in it where someone from the New Life magazine visited you personally in London and wrote about you. I don't know if you can remember that.
Ooh, probably not. No,
No.
no.
And he wrote that you didn't have all the money to really the money to live and had to make hard jobs to cope the life.
Yeah, I mean, it still took a long time, even after we signed a record contract with 4AD. We never really saw any money come in until the second album, really, and the third album um, was the one that at that time. Well, Serpent's Egg, the fourth album, really was like the key turning point, really, because we were on the dole for those first two albums and getting social security benefits, and we we basically went to Ivo, head of 4AD, and said instead of paying for a recording studio, which at that time with most 4AD bands was about between 10 and 20,000 budget. They record an album, mix it in 2 to 3 weeks. We asked him whether we could just have that money, just give us the money, and we invested it in a small home studio.
Yeah.
Because at that time, with new digital technology, it meant that it was a possibility, and using computers with music, made it more practical and affordable for musicians. And so that's how we kind of got out of the cycle of having to pay back expenses of what studio time, etc., cost, basically. Yeah.
In public, Dead Can Dance is known for two people. It's you and Lisa. Where and how did you met Lisa?
Lisa was in another band, which my flatmate, who was a drummer, Shay, had told me about her because he was playing with that band on and off. He just joined them, and she came round to visit him one night, and I was there, and that's how we met, basically. And we I was in another band at that time called the Marching Girls, and she was in several bands, and doing a bit of modeling too, I think, at the time. That's how we met.
When or at which point do you decide who's gonna sing the next song? If you write it.
Yeah. What, in the future or at that time?
At that time.
At that time. Well, she wasn't actually in the band, the first incarnation of Dead Can Dance. We were a three-piece, guitar, bass, drums.
Yeah.
And we'd rehearsed, got a set of material together, and we played a couple of shows. And then I asked her if she wanted to come and play some drums with us. Had some African drums lying around, and also we had some electronic synth drums too. So when she first performed with us, that's what she played. And then it was like, Oh, great. You want to do some backing vocals? Yeah, sure. Okay, backing vocals. And then, um, but it wasn't until we actually got to England and started writing some music for our first live shows in London that that she actually sung lead vocals. You know, so it's about 6 or 7 months into the journey, as it were.
And which songs do you sing and which songs does she sing?
Well, originally she would sing the songs that she wrote, and
Ah,
I would always sing the songs that I wrote. But that kind of morphed across. I'd started writing um, uh, music for her, and continue to do that right up until recently. Um, yeah, yeah, that's essentially kind of like the dynamic of it. Um, we rarely ever kind of like did harmonies or anything like that, really. She kind of reinforced some of the vocal lines by
mhm.
singing along, but we were not the kind of mamas and papas vocal harmony
Yeah,
kind of like deal, you know. And it was kind of nice having that that bidimensionality, you know, of because her music was linked but different to mine. So we're kind of portraying, I suppose, two facets, two musical
yeah.
facets that that sometimes merged and created something else, a third entity, you know. Yeah.
In especially in the beginning, your music was as I felt then absolutely new. No one else in the world has made such music. How would you describe your music in the beginning?
Um, at the very beginning, as a three-piece, we were kind of very much influenced by what was happening in England. You know, groups like Joy Division, Magazine, Wire, these bands, kind of post-punk kind of music, and and then when Lisa joined, it kind of morphed more into took on a more of a theatrical element because Lisa never sung in English. Um, in fact, she used to busk around Melbourne a lot, and she had a piano accordion, and she used to sing kind of like what I would describe as faux. Oh, who's that French singer?
I don't know.
Je ne regrette rien. You know the little sparrow.
Jacques Brel?
No, the woman.
No.
That's terrible. Just had a brain block. Um, but she used to sing in this kind of like faux, kind of like French style with a big piano accordion.
Edith Piaf.
That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah.
And she used to sing a few Edith Piaf songs in her own way, and it kind of brought in a kind of, I suppose, kind of romantic kind of um, old old world, otherworldly kind of element into the music. You know, yeah.
And I think you took the, I don't know, the culture of medieval music 10 years before it happened in the rest of the world.
Yeah, yeah. You know, music goes through revivals all the time.
Yeah.
Old music, you know, we just happen to be coming at it from a completely different sort of angle because we're not trained musically.
Mhm.
Like normally, especially with classical music, early music, it's performed by people who read music or have been to music school, and neither myself nor Lisa had ever been to any of these institutions. We're kind of self-taught autodidacts.
Yeah.
We work with the ear more than the eye and the page, as it were. And so that kind of like helps us develop, I suppose, a kind of unique and unusual approach. Um, we kind of go at interpretations of like old works in a completely, I suppose, novel way. It's in our own way, you know, and with our own voices. Um, and I think that's why what we do is unique, because we're kind of in a sense unique to ourselves. We're kind of truer to ourselves. We don't come from any form of schooling.
Mhm.
We're not members of a particular school, whether it's goth or new romantics or what have you. We just no, thank you. We just want to be who we are.
Yeah.
We don't want to follow any movements. You know, we don't want to start any movements. We just want to be who we are and share that experience musically.
If I listen to your first records today, I think I cannot really find any, let's say, problems listening to it, because I think they listen as new as they did 40 years ago.
Oh, that's great. That's a lovely compliment, and
Yeah.
it means a lot because part of what we set out to do indirectly is to make music that's going to last beyond
Yeah.
a movement, beyond time, beyond cliques and fashion. So if it does it for you, then it's mission accomplished, you know, for us. Yeah.
Yes, if we are at compliments, I think one of the first songs I ever heard of you and still like and still love is How Fortunate the Man Who's None. I think it's one of the best songs of the 80s.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I had a little help from Bertolt Brecht, obviously,
Yeah,
but yeah,
not personally.
no, in the spirit of, yeah.
Yeah. And the question which everyone interests is, does Dad Can Dance still exist?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I'm working on a new album. It's um, it's the sequel to Dionysus, the last album. It's going to be called Apollo.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like the counterpart
Yeah.
to Dionysus. Yeah, that's what I'm working on now, and it's great to be able to work on it here. You know, in this, I live in Epidavros in the Peloponnese,
Yeah.
and it's very near a lot of the old sacred sites and things that are associated with Apollo and his son Asclepius. Uh, so it's great. It's really inspiring musically, and I hope to have that album finished um, before the end of the year,
Yeah.
and then prepare early next year for touring for next summer.
And who are the members of Dad Can Dance today?
Well, it's just myself and sometimes Lisa when she decides to show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this album, it's pretty much all myself. Yeah.
And in the past, you had time to do some uh, Samba school, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. In Ireland, I I wanted to do something for the local community. It was a small village that
Yeah.
was about 3 miles from my church studio and in Belturbet. And so I thought, you know, the best, always the best introduction to music usually comes through rhythm because it's
Yeah.
something we generally have in common, you know, and it's relatively uncomplicated. You can make it as complicated as you want,
Hmm.
but it's relatively uncomplicated. And so I thought the model of a samba school was perfect because the way it works in Brazil, in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. It really is like the hub of the community. It's a
Yeah.
real community project, these Samba schools. So I thought it'd be a great idea to start it up, and then it was a big success. We did lots of street parades and festivals around the north of Ireland and Dublin, and and we I organised a festival which wasn't just samba; it was Afro-Brazilian and Afro-Cuban music, and we held that one year, which was great. And then I kind of handed the reins over to a Lithuanian friend, Zini, who is still running the school. Um, uh, Mainly because what used to happen was I would would teach people to play all the parts, and we'd get really good. It would get to a really good standard, and we had songs and everything, arrangements. And then invariably, those people would go on and find jobs in Dublin or go overseas, and you'd lose a lot of your best players.
Yeah.
So come the next year, it was like Groundhog Day. You were starting from scratch again, having to build it. You know, you get good, and then you're back to kind of just the basics again. And after about 5 years of this, I got a bit tired of it. You know, and so I passed responsibility on to a friend. But it was a great experience. It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
But apart from Dead Can Dance, you also released some solo albums. Why did you do so? Didn't they fit in the Dead Can Dance suit?
Well, the first one didn't really. It was kind of I was more into. It was a side. Actually, it's another Irish connection because in Ireland at that time, less so now, but the pubs were really sort of like the hubs of the community in most towns and villages, and there'd be lots of music sessions, live music sessions, and so I kind of wanted to be involved in that. So I just started to learn a lot of different cover versions and did some originals too on just playing acoustic guitar. And invariably, the kind of genre was like kind of folk, country, blues music. And so the first album was really kind of a result of writing music in this genre, and it wasn't really um, uh, so didn't really sit with the Dead Can Dance catalog as such, you know. So and we were kind of taking more time out from each other at that time anyway. Myself and Lisa, she had her own projects, and invariably she then went from solo albums into movies, and I would do the occasional film documentary, but not to the degree that she did and has. Um, and yeah, that's really how the first solo album came about. The second solo album, Arc, is really like um, I think pretty much I've I'd kind of stopped Dead Can Dance. We kind of like put it completely on hold. Um, didn't know what the future was really for that project. So I kind of put the emphasis of like the actual next Dead Can Dance album could have been Arc, and in fact has some songs on Arc that we perform live as Dead Can Dance. So for me, it was like a natural extension of like, well, Dead Can Dance is finished. This is like the next Dead Can Dance album,
Yeah.
but I went solo with it. Um, in retrospect, probably should have been the next Dead Can Dance album, but uh, yeah, yeah, that's really how I'm diversified into solo projects.
One question I always ask today is it still possible to live from making music?
Wow, no, I think it's extremely difficult. now. Yeah, it's it's sad because um, now it seems that music somehow is something which has been completely devalued in society,
Yeah,
and it isn't just about streaming, which is the obvious um, root problem of why artists can't support themselves, but it's invariably lots of other factors. Um, I think a lot of the problems really stem from the way modern record companies operate. We had a great period of during the indie label period,
yeah,
from the late 70s through the 80s and into the 90s. It was like the golden age, really, for me of for the record industry. But then it all kind of like all these small labels got squeezed under bigger umbrellas, and Universal and Sony companies like this started just cherry picking and buying off little labels until eventually you just had just big players on the block, and the indie labels that were existing kind of went major and lost their ethos, forgot their ethos. Um, and that's really important, because the great thing about working with 4AD is that they encouraged artists. There was a great sense of belonging to that label and working with all the other groups. You felt like you were part of a community, but there was a nurturing kind of factor that was really important. That you might not have hit the ground running with your first album, but with encouragement, you could probably do it with your second album,
yeah.
or third. But you needed people who were thinking long term and not short term, like the way the music industry works today, which is like, let's throw a whole load of money at it. And if it doesn't float, then it's not our problem because we've just thrown a lot of money at it, and it's failed. And it isn't about money. It's about nurturing and about artistic integrity, and having more of an artistic end goal, which is long term. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's creativity, it's not a competition. It's about development. And sadly, we seem to have gone back to that old fashioned, studio model, record company model. Um, Also, a lot of the studios have gone, all the big studios.
Yeah.
It's become, everyone with a door and a speaker and an amplifier and a desk and a few effects, and away you go.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of productions and things um, are not great. Um, well, yeah, there's the artistry has suffered too on the technical level,
Yeah.
all the way through the industry. Yeah. Mm.
When there will be a tour next year, will you come to Germany?
Mm, I would imagine so. Yeah, yeah. If yeah, if the borders are still open.
I hope so. We have a new government. Let's see what comes.
My God, yeah. I don't know if it's a yeah. When are your elections? When are your next elections? A
In
few
four
years away.
years.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'd say definitely be there then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
How can I imagine the audience at a Dead Can Dance concert? Are they always as old as we both are?
Generally speaking, yeah, yeah, they do tend to be on the elderly side
Yeah.
now. Um, Back in the 90s, they were really mixed, from really young, right through to older, much older people than myself. Um, but I think there's probably to do with the fact I think a lot of uh, the music people that come to see come for maybe they haven't seen us before and it's the last chance to see us. Maybe there's a lot of nostalgia as you get older. It's generate this strong sense of nostalgia and of our generation, you know, which is coming towards its close. And but yeah, young people don't seem to I think this recent generation don't seem to be as interested in the music that we make. And to be honest, I don't really make music for that generation, a young generation anyway. It's a completely different world, you know. If I can't even make sort of like sort of connections between when I was young and how young people are today. It's a completely different world. It was far wilder, and there were still so many possibilities when I was younger. Now it's just seems like everything has become like a nanny state. Everything is like controlled, mapped out. The future is really uncertain on so many levels. Work, you know, AI, climate, yeah, politics, geopolitics, so many levels. It's I have a young daughter, which is 20, late 20s now, and it's kind of she's great. She's in a good place, you know. She has a good job and what have you, but I think it's hard for people bringing children into this world now with such an uncertain sort of future, you know. Yeah.
Okay, then we are really looking forward for the new Dead Can Dance album, and I am personally looking forward to maybe see you in Germany next year. Brandon, I thank you very much for this great interview and the whole history of Dead Can Dance and of Brandon Perry. And if the new record is available, maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, sure. I'll let you know. Yeah, I'll keep you in the loop, information wise. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, and nice greetings to Greece.
Okay. Cheers,
bye bye.
Take care.